Hi, everyone. It's Mark David Gibson, the author of Served in Silence and fellow certified LGBTE.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. And on this week's episode, we are welcoming Mark Gibson, who's calling all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. So, Mark, welcome to the show. Are you ready to inspire fellow Out Bosses?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'm super psyched for this episode. Mark Gibson is a retired U.S. Air Force captain, and he currently works in communications with the U.S. Small Business Administration, where he helps entrepreneurs just like us build and scale our businesses. Mark also recently made his debut as an author with his best-selling book, Served in Silence: The Struggle to Live Authentically. His book's success has now launched his speaking business, which is centered around the authenticity alignment. So I'm super excited to talk about that. And during our conversation, we're going to talk more about his book, why he felt strongly about sharing his story, and how it has led him to build a successful speaking enterprise. So definitely you're going to want to stick around for the whole conversation, because at the end, Mark has a few exciting promotions that he's offering our audience. So kick us off, and why not talk a little bit more about the book and your journey in writing that book?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me, and I'm honored to be here. But first, it just must be said, and congratulations to you, fellow best-selling author of Belonging at Work.
Yeah,
Aaron
thank
and I
you.
are really enjoying it, and the call-out boxes, and it's just very well done. So well
gosh.
done, my friend. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so Served in Silence. Wow, it's been an amazing journey over the last year. And Mr. Wonderful, AKA my husband, Aaron, and I sit back and reflect that, wow, just a year ago, we were in the cover design aspects and phase of our book baby, which was just really bringing together the sticky notes and napkins and ideas of a manuscript to now just getting back from taking it on tour to 6 countries and 7 cities in our European book tour and speaking tour. So we are super excited.
And that's full throttle, right? I mean, it's a year ago, 1 year ago, I feel like for some authors, it takes years just to kind of get up and write the thing that they want to write. And so for you, can you walk us through, the moment that you decided to write this book? And from that point, just how did you take it from the idea to, you're a best-selling author and you're traveling to Europe on a book tour?
Let me just be clear and put the disclaimer out there that I didn't get it done that fast. This has been, like many authors, like you just mentioned, that takes, many years in the works and process. And this is a memoir, so this was a little bit different as well. This I've been crafting notes and ideas from my second deployment in Afghanistan, where we had fallen under attack, and the village was under attack outside of our base. And it just dawned on me that while I was reflecting in the aftermath, here I am, and as an American officer fighting in a country for more rights for people in that country than I have in my own country. Mm-hmm. So I kind of felt like I was serving in silence, and then Served in Silence was born.
Right. So, and I thank you for that kind of disclaimer where, to write a memoir, it requires years of lived experiences. And you are a retired captain from the Army. You served
Air Force.
Sorry about that. Okay. Air Force. Okay. Got that. And that's an important distinction for sure. I have family who are retired from the military, so I definitely know that. Okay. Retired captain from the Air Force, and you served in silence. So talk with us. We've got members in our audience, some of whom very much remember Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Others are skew a little bit younger. So for an audience that doesn't really understand the full gravity of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, share with us more about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is really the touch points to a lot of the narratives that we have right now, between belonging at work or served in silence, and just the whole notion of authenticity, and how once we bring our true selves to the day, how we're able to contribute in a much better and a bigger way. So my entire career was before the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was a very dehumanizing and demoralizing policy that basically put gates around our military members to not be authentic and not be their true self. And so I wrote the book, and the experiences before, during, and then after the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy.
So I'm thinking, I've had conversations with folks who also served before Don't Ask, Don't Tell went in place during the Clinton years. And some people, it's skewed. I would really love to hear your take on what that experience was like, where it was completely silent. There were zero policies around that experience. So did it just differ depending on who you reported to? Culturally, did that look different, in different branches of the military, going from the Air Force to potentially talking with other folks who served in different parts of the military, like in the Army or in the Navy? I mean, what was that experience like when it was completely, there were no policies? Was it better? Did Don't Ask, Don't Tell help at all with that, or help us understand that?
Yeah. And I remember it vividly. So when I first joined, and I was very young, I was 17 years old, it was 1986, and I had to sign the enlistment documents. And I remember the recruiting sergeant looking down, and this is when you still smoked in offices back then, and he's smoking his cigarette, and he said, "I want you to pay particular attention to the very last question." And I read it again, and it was, it clearly asked you, "Are you a homosexual?" Mm-hmm. And, he specifically pointed that out, and people asked me, "Do you think that he knew or what?" I'm like, I was 17. I didn't even know. I don't even know what they're. So at that time, I knew, but at that time, I just took it. It was very odd that you were going to be giving up civilian freedoms and rights to join the military, to raise your hand and take a bullet for your country, that the very last question was focused and concerned around your sexuality. Right. So I was just like, well, that just was a total disconnect. Right. And so for me and many other people, straight or gay in the military, is when I was in uniform, to me, it was disrespectful that you would be discussing sexuality while you're in uniform. It was unprofessional and disrespectful. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't do it. And we just, kind of held a high standard to it. It just wasn't a necessary topic.
Right.
So, then the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy comes along, and there were atrocities. And now that I've been on my book tour since March, and meeting people all over the country that were affected by the before the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy and the lives that it ruined, I would have to say, based on my experience, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy wasn't necessarily a safety net. Maybe it was to some, but in the very beginning, it increased the witch hunts, if you will. I'll put up the air quotes, the witch hunts to try to find people that associated with an LGBT lifestyle. They weren't going to ask you. You didn't have to tell. But if you associated with that type of lifestyle, then it was conduct unbecoming. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was like, well, and I write a little bit about it in my book. When I was stationed in Alabama, and we used to drive to Atlanta and park our cars in church parking lots because our cars had Department of Defense decals on them before we would go into Atlanta to go to Outright Bookstore for our coffee or go to a local club or something like that, because we didn't want our car to be associated or identified in the establishment.
Wow. So just
and this is America. Yeah. I mean, this is not like the Czech Republic. This is America.
Yeah. And those kind of extra safety precautions just for your own job security, right? And, this policy that I guess, the intentions I'm assuming were good, right? Or I mean, I think when this was going on, this was in the 90s, so I was a teenager. So like,
Yeah.
could you maybe just give us a crash history lesson on the rationale of introducing this policy? Was it intended? Was the intention to actually help LGBT service members, or was it more sinister in why it was introduced?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the best way that I can summarize it is listening to President Clinton discussing somewhat of a memoir. He was in an interview and asking his memorable moments or regrets. And the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was certainly one of his regrets.
Yeah.
And the reason for it was strictly a fiscal and a budget consideration. And it was what he had to give, he and the Democrats at the time had to give back and to give into versus a full up open policy to the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in order to get the budget passed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So it's the sausage making of our legislation, which is filled with compromise. And like you said, I mean, it destroyed lives, right? And you write about this so eloquently in your book of just the impact that it had on you. And now, you've seen this through, before, during, and after. And you were at the SBA, right, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was rescinded? Is that true, or had you not?
No, I was actually not there yet.
Okay.
I was retired by that point and fully retired, living a beautiful life in Costa Rica.
Nice. Yes. Okay. You were taking some time away from the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what was that like, though? You're in Costa Rica, you're retired, you see this trending in the news. When you first heard that it was overturned, take us back to that moment. What was that like for you?
I felt sad, and I felt sad in a way because it was like, ooh, I really wanted that. I felt bad for the Air Force as an institution, and I felt bad for the other people that I had served with because I was a highly decorated officer, and I loved the military, and the Air Force was a way of life for me for 20 years. Mm-hmm. But it was like maybe some of our brothers and sisters that might not be out to a loved one. That loved one never really gets to experience them in an authentic capacity at 100%. Yeah. So the Air Force never got to experience Mark 2.0, which I write about now that I'm truly living an authentic life. And we'll get into that about later on, and then joining the SBA. And but I was very happy for my fellow Americans. And I talked to some of my friends that were still on active duty. And in the Army, to them, there was more hubbub about changing the color of the beret than there was about allowing gays to serve openly. Because at the end of the day, if you do your job and you do it well, really, I really don't think anybody cares.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting how you're describing this of like the initial feeling of feeling sad, right? Because I can imagine, just kind of being in your shoes or trying to empathize here, that it's like you then reflect on your career of like, wow, if this hadn't been in place and if I could have shown up more authentically, how different would my own experience of serving the country be, right? And right, I can see that. I can see it being a mixed bag, right? Because it's kind of the way that for me as someone, I came out as at 19. But I look at younger kids and trans kids who their parents are totally cool, they're 4 or 5 and they're able to kind of live their full life exactly the way that they, in the gender that they are. So I can see that, for me, it's like, like if my childhood could have been like that, it would have been so different, right? But at the same time, I'm like super excited that the world is shifting and that things are getting better. So I can imagine, what was it like for you knowing, probably some folks who are serving actively who are LGBT? Could you see that shift of maybe just like a relief for your colleagues who are still in service after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was rescinded?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that sense of relief, I mean, just think about if you think back to before you came out and at 19, and then the layers upon layers and filters and pronoun shifts and what you have to do that's exhausting to even make it through the morning coffee.
Yes.
Well, now you have a military member, a soldier, a sailor, an airman, a Marine, that they can skip right to just being 100% professional.
Yes. Yeah.
So now it's like, oh, shoot, that's over. Okay, now let me just focus on this. And then I think really, and not just in the military, but belonging at work and in a work environment and entrepreneurism, as that's where the magic begins.
Yes.
Because you don't have to worry about putting on those 15 layers of sunglasses to look through those lenses to get to be an authentic person. And so I think the members of the military, I think that they just were like, okay, we're glad that's behind us. And really, like I said, at the end of the day, a couple of times I got a little tripped up in my career, but I was just a really good officer.
Yes.
And I just focused on being a really good officer.
Yes. Yeah. So I love this idea of Mark 2.0 and showing up more authentically in your work. So we're going to go to a very quick sponsorship break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about more about Mark 2.0. Hey, Outbosses, Rhodes Perry here. As you all know, part of my passion for this podcast is to empower you and fellow LGBT entrepreneurs to cultivate a feeling of purpose and belonging in your business. To know that you can show up and be the most authentic version of yourself. Purpose, belonging, and workplace culture are concepts I take seriously in my own consulting business. In fact, I'm on a mission to empower leaders just like you and those on their way to joining us to cultivate cultures of belonging. In my upcoming book, Belonging at Work, I share some of my personal struggles of coming out as a trans guy in the workplace and how I leverage this experience as one of my business superpowers. Now, I'm on a mission to support you in taking simple actions that will make a world of difference for anyone who has ever felt as if they needed to hide important aspects of themselves on the job. When you commit to purchasing a special, limited edition copy of the book, a portion of your purchase will support expanding workplace opportunities for fellow transgender and non-binary people. An added bonus, your story about what it means to belong at work will be featured on the book's website to inspire others. You're ready to belong at work now. To learn more, visit Rhodes on Amazon.com or text 444-999 and type the word belong. Again, that's Rhodes on Amazon.com or text 444-999 and type belong. Okay, Mark, so let's jump back here and talk more about Mark 2.0. So I know that you write about this in your book, but can you describe this to our audience and what was happening in your life at Mark 2.0 and what did that lead to in terms of your work and how you showed up at work?
Yeah, that was probably the easiest part of the book to write because I was actually living it real time. So writing the outline was just like, well, this is just my everyday. This is, I greet Mr. Wonderful. I'm allowed to be out at work. So that was just a quick and easy way. But getting to Mark 2.0 was pretty challenging. And that was the pivotal moment that it was inspirational to me to write the book, because I realized that after doing battle like a good military person, I armed up in the best way I knew possible, but I had to seek some assistance with doing battle against PTSD from the wounds of war and severe alcoholism for nearly 4 decades of my life. And that was while I was in Costa Rica, and coming out victorious on the other end of that, then Mark 2.0 was born. And I realized that was a gift, because the life that I was living, the checks that I was writing for my body that my body couldn't cash, the doctor told me, you're not making it to 45. The numbers on your lab results don't lie. And so I took that very serious as a gift back. And now Mark 2.0 was the crowning moment when I decided that that's when I wanted to write the book and why.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like your experience in Costa Rica was kind of hitting pause on life and allowing that transformation to happen. And doing the reflection work that you needed to do at that point. So when you came back, Mark 2.0, you moved back to the States. Is that when you joined the SBA, or were there other kind of like twists and turns in your career before you jumped on and joined the SBA?
No, I was in Costa Rica, and so here I am, 40 years old, living in a glass house in the rainforest of paradise.
Cool.
And family reasons brought me back to the U.S. I couldn't be that guy that was, 40 years old in flip-flops and shorts and Hawaiian T-shirts all day. So I came back to help out my family, and a friend just tossed me a job that was opening at the SBA in communications. And I looked at different government jobs, and I just loved the SBA's mission and the spirit of the entrepreneur, where I could have probably picked a number of any other federal agencies. As a military guy, it's a little easier transition to go back into federal government. But I was really just focused on the SBA. That was the universe answering back to me about launching Mark 2.0. And the best was yet to come, because little did I know what was around the corner for my awesome experience at the SBA.
Oh, yeah. And that's where we first met, was when you were one of the architects of the LGBT Business Builder program through the Small Business Administration. For folks who aren't familiar with the acronyms we're throwing around, SBA. When did you decide to kind of craft this vision of the LGBT Business Builder, the program that you developed, and what were its goals, and what did you see happen, at least over the past administration, with that work?
This is the crucial moment for Mark 2.0 to shine. We are going to stretch the shirt open to unveil Superman's coat underneath, because it comes across my desk as a press release, and it comes across my desk from Washington that one of our big bosses was launching a new campaign for the Obama administration. And the name of it at the time was Many Faces, One Dream. And Atlanta was going to be the pilot to Many Faces, One Dream. And that's when I had the opportunity to meet my boss and mentor, Mr. Eugene Cornelius at the time. And the Many Faces, One Dream tour came to Atlanta. And I just could not believe it. It was like one of those moments where you feel like you're swimming in water in a suit. You're not getting wet. I mean, you just feel like everything is just so perfect that I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this was happening in the federal government. And the overall, the arching goal and the mission of Many Faces, One Dream was to roll out the red carpet for the LGBT community to provide equal access to programs. That's it. Nothing new, no set-asides, no handouts. It wasn't even a hand up. It was a hand across the table to say, hey, you are a tax-paying American. These are your programs and services. Let me show you that you have a resource at your local small business administration. And who couldn't get behind that? It was all about economic development. And so we went back, and after the pilot program, we crafted a very targeted pillar of Many Faces, One Dream, and that became the LGBT Business Builder. Myself and colleague David Perry from the SBA at the time, and Sam McClure from the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, the three of us met in Atlanta in 2014, and we crafted the LGBT Business Builder, which was an economic empowerment tour that promoted certification with SBA programs and services to support that certification. And the rest was history. We had a mandate, a goal at the time from Eugene and several congressional leaderships that we needed to increase the number of certified businesses from the number that they had, which was maybe around 100, to over 1,000. And Eugene, for those of you that don't know him, he is a pretty forceful guy in his intentions. And he basically told us, you will go make that happen all across America. And we were very proud to bring that 2-year co-sponsorship agreement to a close with over 1,000 certified businesses at the NGLCC. And the cherry on top is we ended up winning the Bright Ideas Innovation in American Government Award from Harvard University.
Yes, congratulations. That's huge. That's
huge. That was a very nice congratulatory gift to give back to the Obama administration before they departed.
Yeah, it was such a, being, a participant in that program gave me a lot of inspiration, as a small business owner. It gave me the hope of, there's support and there's resources that are out there. And, as you were launching this program, that was about the time that I was thinking about, okay, what are my next steps? And, really giving entrepreneurship that consideration. And when I saw this program, I was like, wow, even the federal government is behind our communities. And I thought that was so amazing. So, you were one of the architects of that. And you have so much to be proud of, in terms of, not only are you a small business owner with your speaking business that you're doing, as an author, you've paved the way for thousands of people, at least who are certified, and who knows how many more who've yet to get certified that have just been so encouraged by the work that you've done. So thank you for that. And I'm sure
absolutely.
Yeah. That's just incredible. And so in that kind of push to get more of these businesses, more LGBT-owned businesses certified, you're writing your book, or you like it's getting closer, right? Like it's kind of bubbling up now. So like as you were doing that work, were you in the process of writing your memoir? I know that you said it was many years in the making, but what was the point where you took pen to paper and you said, okay, now is the time?
I hope he's not listening. He probably is. But I owe a lot of this to Mr. Wonderful, who at the dating, we've all been there, right? We've all dated. And, it's that interview time where, so what do you do for work? And what do you do? And I am, puffing up, well, I'm going to write a book.
Yes.
Oh,
awesome.
You are? Oh, that's pretty cool. I'm going to run a triathlon. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. And I'm working for the SBA. And so after a few years that we were dating, from time to time, Mr. Wonderful would be like, hey, how's that book coming along? I'm like, oh, I thought you would have forgot about that. Okay. Yeah, that book. I was successful as a gift to myself and a photo opportunity to send back to the doctor that told me I wouldn't make it to 45. I did compete and complete a triathlon in my 45th year, in the first year that we started dating.
Wow.
And so you're right. The Business Builder, everything was coming together. Mark 2.0 was freshly pressed in the suits that I was wearing and just really comfortable for the first time. For the first time, my personal life and my professional life was able to intersect, and it was good. It was beyond good. And I didn't intend to fall in love, but that was a wonderful consequence of Mark 2.0. And so we were traveling across the country with the Business Builder, and Sam McClure and I and David, when you're doing that many cities in a rapid succession of time, you become very close with your coworkers, very close. Yes. It's planes, trains, automobiles, Ubers, taxis, and so just in the quiet time and getting to know each other, Sam really wanted to support me. And she wasn't pushy. She was just, hey, I'm here to support you. And I know this is bugging you about this book that you're going to write. So, I'm here to help you, friend, when you need some help. Oh, thanks, Sam. Oh, thanks. Well, during that time frame, I was also working with a unofficial ghostwriter to help me just kind of put things together. And that wasn't working out because love her dearly, but her daughter had her granddaughter, and grandmas change their vision of priorities when the grandbaby comes along. And my little manuscript definitely did not fall in the pecking order. So it wasn't until then that Sam had reached back out to me, and I just told her, I said, I'm kind of stuck. And she said, you are unstuck as of tonight. I want to introduce you by a text message to Jen T. Grace at Publish Your Purpose Press.
Oh, yeah.
If anybody can get this done, I know that the two powerhouses like you will get this done.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, thanks, Sam. Well, I'm kind of like Eeyore, do. So then I start cyber stalking Jen Grace and Publisher Purpose Press and looking at everything online. And so, yeah, we had an intake call in May. And I enrolled in the next Authors Academy. And it was an unbelievable ride. It was 14 weeks, as you know, Rhodes, and just a really powerful and impacting program that really lit the fires, kicked the tires, light the fires to launch that manuscript into production.
Yeah, and this is the power of one of at least the superpowers that I believe of our communities is that connection and that commitment to supporting each other in business or in life goals. And Sam McClure really embodies that. She's someone that I really look up to, and for her to just say, I'm here to support and kind of gently just bringing up the topic of the book again and again, and just finally making that connection to Jen, who, you're completely right, and she's completely right. She's a powerhouse in terms of herself being an author and sharing that knowledge with people who go through her program. Like you, I couldn't recommend it more to people thinking about writing a book. It is 14 weeks, so it's a big time commitment, and you're going to learn a ton, not just about like how to write a book, how to market it, et cetera, but about yourself, right? And I'm curious for you, Mark, like when you went through the program, it's the book writing, and you wrote a memoir, so it's a little bit different than writing a business book, right? But like, how much of it was, for you, just like personal growth when you went through that program, or was it more you were just kind of learning the nuts and bolts of how to write the book, or do you feel like you really grew and understood yourself in a new light after you went through the process?
Yeah, I would say I don't know if there's really a way to wrap your arms all around it, because after I met Jen, then I got the 14-week curriculum and we started talking. I made a commitment, and it seemed like this overachiever now could actually have a purpose and a goal to be overachieving. So I made a commitment that I was going to finish my manuscript at the same time. So in the 14 weeks, I would take the Authors Academy by day, and then I would I would write the manuscript at night. Oof. And it was a metamorphosis of learning about myself, because memoir writing, you're right, it's obviously different than a business book, but that's ripping off Band-Aids, that's ripping off old wounds, and really having to address some not so pleasant things. But what was wonderful, and I think you're right, Rhodes, about that superpower, is in the Authors Academy in the very beginning, there's an exercise that you do about supporting yourself and finding support for your project with an accountability system. And so I was able to, I'm like, wow, that really works. Hey, let me try that. And so it wasn't just accountability for me, hey, I'm writing a book, but hey, I'm writing a memoir and this is going to be really difficult for me, but I'm going to get through it. And I need your help. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of personal growth in actually getting it done. And now Jen will tell you, those of you that are listening, and if you talk to Jen, I hope you do in the future here, she will tell you she does not recommend doing the Authors Academy and the manuscript in 14 weeks, but it can be done.
And you did it, and you crushed it. I mean, you really did an incredible job, and I feel like as you were doing that, you were also developing a lot of incredible marketing around your book as well. So, I mean, there's a lot that we can learn from your journey, and I want to still stay in this kind of like personal growth and ask you a question about mindset, which is, for you are one of many people who experienced Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military, and how awful it was for you personally. How did you move away from the imposter complex that naturally comes up when we're doing anything in business? It's like, who am I to like make this product or do this thing when there's all these other people that, they're doing it or they could do it. So did that, I guess the first part of the question is, did that pop up for you? And maybe you're one of the few who avoided imposter complex completely. But if you experienced it, what were some of the strategies that you developed to work around it?
Yeah, the imposter, I didn't really experience, I might have experienced it, but I might not have recognized it, because in the military, you operate with a set of core values. And those core values are what run your machine of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all you do. Mm-hmm. And those weren't just bumper stickers. I mean, that when you're putting on your uniform, you're reciting that in your head. When you're putting your hat on, you're reciting that in your head. So I just really kept the eye on the prize of, you're a military officer. Yeah. And that was it.
Yep.
And now, with regard to writing the book and the doubt demons that, or even, as an entrepreneur, when you're trying something new or different, it's like, who do you think you are mentality, or, that doubt is on your shoulder. The best and the quickest lesson I got was from my editor. And I absolutely loved my editor. I love the whole team at Publish Your Purpose Press. But she called me out on one of, I don't know, I call it Kaflama drama. I was having Kaflama drama of one of the sections of the book. And she got a little loud with me on the phone. And she's like, how dare you? How dare you try to tell me how I'm going to experience authenticity when reading your book? That's not your job. Your job is to be the excellence in all you do. And then I will experience my own experience of authenticity after reading your book. And so that just kind of like, whoa, that was a little stinging, but it really hit home to kind of stop. I kind of put that at bay. I kind of set that aside. And I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. I mean, it happens a lot. I launched my book in a really big way, in a very big splash at the Fox Theater. That's a big event.
Yeah.
To launch a book.
Yes.
And, but with the power to believe and with the power of living authentically, you can just steady the course. And those sinking stomach feelings of self-doubt, you're running so fast that it's hard for them to keep up.
Yeah, yeah. And can you define conflama drama? It's a new word that I'm like, I've never heard that before.
And luckily, I'm glad you don't have Mr. Wonderful and Jen on the phone, but they, of course, were part of my support system, and everything would be fine. Everything would just be going. We're on schedule. I'm a military guy. We will be on time, if not early. We will be under budget. And so everything would be fine. And then all of a sudden, they would start getting these text messages from me like, "That's horrible. That section I just wrote, we have to redo it. It wasn't good enough." And so Jen would handle that by letting me just vent for a little bit. And we called it Kaflama drama, as Mark's just in Kaflama, and it's drama. And I'm going to tell him to go for a run around the park or ride his bike and clear his head and get back to work.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's. I think I could extrapolate what it meant, but thank you for defining it for us. I think many of us have found ourselves in conflama dramas from time to time. Oh, yeah. So. And I really liked what you were saying where, for you, your military training, reflecting on being an officer grounded you, to a point where you knew that you could do it. Like you had experienced so many other things in your life where it's like you put the book writing process into perspective compared to other experiences that you had, and just, surviving as a military officer, highly decorated, that's gives you that confidence. And I think, for so many of our listeners, we have so much resiliency, in terms of being a part of what I term as our rainbow family. I've shared, with past guests, when I experienced my own conflama drama or self-doubt or imposter complex, I often recall, I just think I transitioned, there's a lot of things, that puts everything in perspective, in terms of hard things that you accomplish in your life. And so I think that that's a great reminder. Not everybody may be a military officer, but there's something that you've done in your life that you're proud of and that was really hard, and you can hang your hat on that and remember, whatever struggle or whatever you're up against in your business, or if you're writing a book or whatever that thing is, that you have a big goal, you're going to get there. And if it feels like you experienced a little failure along the way, that's just another root that's making your foundation that much stronger, So I think that's super, super helpful, Mark. So thank you for that. You've pivoted now. So you work at the SBA, you're doing great work there. And you've launched a speaking platform. And in the bio, let me just make sure that I get this right. I had mentioned that you have this Authenticity Alignment 360. Can you talk more about how the book has opened up this avenue for speaking, what that is like as a business, and, how you're using this new assessment to generate more interest in both your book, but more broadly, your message?
Absolutely. So during the Business Builder, the programming for the Business Builder was two pieces. One, it was Sam McClure talking about certification. And then the other piece was SBA programs and services that are available through the Small Business Administration to help entrepreneurs. From business planning to writing your business plan to access to capital to all these things. This is where I really started paying attention for watching Sam and talking about certification and maybe drawing circles or bubbles. And where the magic begins in that authentic moment when you realize that you're not only going to be out and proud, but you're going to have your business also be out. And that is going to bring, like the old American Express, membership has its privileges. Well, that's when we were instructing and educating entrepreneurs on the reasons to certify your business was to give you better access to capital and give you access to the corporate supply chain and for the superpowers of the rainbow family that you just talked about, that would put you in connectivity with like-minded professionals. So I saw the common denominator there was authenticity and bringing your true authentic self to the day, whether you're the entrepreneur, the boss, or whether you're the employee, that all of us are able to contribute in a much bigger and much more powerful way when you can bring your true authentic self to the day. And so in my Authenticity 360 platform, we talk about that and we talk about what does that look like in a 360 of just you and how you interact every day. And then how do you interact authentically to contribute in a much bigger way?
That's huge. That's huge. And I can only imagine, especially as, more science is coming out. I mean, there's books like mine that really kind of go through what we're talking about is not just a feel good, we want to make everyone feel seen and heard and that's it. It's that there's real benefit, if you're just looking at the bottom line in terms of how much productivity can I get out of my employee and how much profit does that yield in my business. When people can show up and know that they can be themselves, that they don't have to assimilate to some kind of culture that feels not right to them, but the culture aligns with their values. They're recognized for their contributions and the genius, that's when that feeling of authenticity is there. There's that formula, and it's in every employer's best interest to really hone in on how do we do this? How do we cultivate this here? And what are we missing? Because 72% of workers right now feel that they have no purpose on their jobs. I mean, that seems 72%. And you saw that firsthand by experiencing Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military. You felt it. If our brains are kind of like supercomputers, right? 25% of that, hard drive in your brain was like, okay, I have to code switch. I can't talk about my partner. I can't use pronouns. like so much of that energy, if you could have just been yourself, and if people asked about your family, you could just talk about it if that came up in conversation. But, that other 25% could have got reinvested in being, you were a highly decorated officer. Imagine how much more, you could have accomplished if people were just totally comfortable with who you are,
Well, yeah. And then I did that, myself and a group of friends, the underground, we went even steps further. Mm-hmm. And the steps further were I never lived in the city that I was stationed in.
Yeah.
So I drove for an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to the base. So in addition to, now I'm exhausted.
Yes.
Because my 10, 12-hour day has turned into a 14, 16-hour day.
Wow.
And then, got to sleep and then try. Maybe it was good. I probably didn't have any a life to talk about. And we talk about that now in my Authenticity 360 platform. It's exhausting. You and I are exhausted just talking about it, let alone the members or the employees that are on our staff.
Right.
And once you can get past that, that's where the magic happens. Mm-hmm. That's when you have excellent solutions to your problems, your business problems.
Yes.
Because I believe that our solutions to our business problems may be hiding in unlikely employees.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. And there's research that shows that, so I think the work that you're doing is so, so important. And I'm just excited that you have the ability to travel as much as you do to share your message with people who can really benefit. I think it's going to help so many people, both who are working, but, more broadly in their lives, just to really self-actualize and just be okay with who you are, be comfortable in your skin. So we are now jumping into our bonus round where we're going to have the opportunity to get to know Mark just a little bit better, gain some insights on how we can bring our whole selves to work, and then learn one way to stay in touch with Mark after the conversation. All right, Mark, are you ready for some quick fire questions?
I'm ready. I got my Gatorade. Go.
Yes. All right. I love it. Okay. So finish the sentence. As an outboss, I believe.
Ooh, as an outboss, I just said it. I believe that solutions may be hiding in our unlikely employees.
Love it. And do you have a mantra or a quote that you reference that helps you stay motivated in your business?
Believe and live authentically.
And can you share one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
Running.
Yes, I love it. Can you name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at?
The books.
Yes. I love it.
I hate dealing with those.
Yeah, they're heavy. And yours is pretty big too.
Yeah. Well, no, not the financial book. So I wrote down CPA Dude.
Oh, yes. Oh, awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. They make accounting fun, so yeah. I love that.
I need them.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Just to be clear, the accounting. Yeah, I get that.
Books.
Yes. Totally. And just two more questions for you. So can you share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
Yes. Coming from a military perspective, you would never go into battle without arming up. You wouldn't go without learning as much information as you can and training. The same would go for entrepreneurism. Use those resources, seek them out, go and talk to successful entrepreneurs and ask them, what do I need to do to get started? People, come to me, go to Rhodes, and then that's where that networking begins, which is going to be your accountability system, and it's going to also later be your safety net.
I love that. That's really, really good advice. And so last question for you, Mark, and it's kind of a two-part question. The first is, can you let us know where we can find you online? And then I know that you have a couple of special promos, so I want to give you space to share that as well.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much. And again, I want to thank you for the honor of being here with you today, Rhodes, and meeting you along the way on the Business Builder. And I know that Eugene and Sam are going to be listening, and just so proud of you and your best-selling new book, Belonging at Work. You can follow me, and there's all kinds of different social media things, but the easiest way is on my website, markdavidgibson.com. If you're interested in learning about my speaking opportunities, you can learn more at markdavidgibson.com/speak. And my book is available at a very cool little shortcut, which is Mark on Amazon.com. And the title is Served in Silence, The Struggle to Live Authentically.
I love it. And just a shout out to both Eugene and Sam. They're awesome, as well as Jen. So definitely important to tip our hats to those folks as well. Mark, it's my honor to have you on the show. Thank you for walking us through your journey and sharing your message with the world, because you are changing lives. With every person who picks up your book and reads it, you're opening hearts, you're opening minds. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. And for our outbosses, thank you so much again for tuning into this week's episode. It's always my privilege to connect with you and so many inspiring outbosses like Mark. So for details from the conversation today, you can check out show notes at outentrepreneur.com. If you are listening to this mobile, you can text OUTBOSS to 444-999, and we can make sure that you're connected with the show.
Yeah. Can we also offer, do we have time to get that special offer out there?
Yeah, let's do it. Go for it.
So anyway, for the outbosses and for startup entrepreneurs that are interested in learning more about taking your subject matter, getting your works published to become an expert in your field, I've been working with our publisher, Jen T. Grace, to present you a special offer. If you would like it, you can go to Publish Your Purpose Press. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 words. publishyourpurposepress.com/out. And that will give you all the information that Rhodes and I were talking about. that paves the way to success in getting your ideas, your sticky notes and napkins into a best-selling manuscript book. And then for doing that, she has also offered, with your paid membership enrollment into the Authors Academy, she is going to throw in Getting Started for Authors program for free, just for out listeners.
Yeah, that is such a generous offer. So if you're tuning in, if you've thought about writing a book, this is a great, great opportunity. Mark, Jen, the entire Publish Your Purpose Press family, just really, really incredible. I went through that myself, and they know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing. So please, please consider taking advantage of that. As a next step, definitely subscribe to the podcast if you haven't. Consider leaving a rating and review in iTunes, and be sure to share the show with a friend or a loved one. And as always, and for now, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.